All right. Glad to see everyone this morning. I was kind of curious. Sometimes we had 4:15 in service this morning, which is great. But sometimes you wonder, especially on days like this, if who's actually going to stay around for class. So a lot of times people are here with families and whatnot, and they get going. This is the last Sunday youth group, last Sunday that you guys will be in here with us. Next week you'll be back in your own class, and I think, Jake, are you starting to teach the youth on Sunday mornings next week?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you guys will be back in there with Jake next Sunday. If you haven't been a part of the series that we have been doing, you can find videos of these online if you're interested in going back and catching any of those. I thought, since this is our last one as we are all together in this way, I would do just kind of a very minor recap. But also I wanted to, I've been mentioning a few passages that have been sort of guiding principles for us as we've been contemplating this probably for many of you very uncomfortable and not much fun topic to think about. I even mentioned at one point, like, I kind of feel like I sound like a crazy person even at times talking about some of this, but I don't think I am, and I don't think that it's anything to not pay attention to. And so I wanted to spend a little more time today as we wrap up this part of this class, thinking about the principles that we are trying to use. And as we've mentioned before, these are things that could really be said about a lot of areas of our life, but we are specifically thinking about our phones and defining the relationship that we have with our phones. They are devices that are relatively new, really. I mean, when I was newly married, I did not have a cell phone. It feels like they've been around forever, but just, in my lifetime, they're relatively new. And they are something that I really don't think anybody really stopped too long to think about the ramifications of what it could do, what kind of impact it could have on us, and especially on younger kids as they grow. But also, like I've mentioned this before, this isn't just a teenager, college student problem. This is a problem that adults have too. And so what we are thinking about this morning, besides our recap, is to then how do we make changes, or what are some things that we could do to make changes in our life? And so I'll have some recommendations as we go. I brought a couple of things that, if you're interested, I know some of you have probably read this book before, or at least heard of it, The Anxious Generation. Anybody read it or heard of it? If you haven't, highly recommend. Highly recommend. This isn't written by a Christian, a mental health professional, but the things that he talks about in this are absolutely amazing. A lot of our schools are beginning to follow some of the things that he talks about and seeing incredible results in not only the behavior of the kids in the schools, but also test scores and things like that, problems that they have. Two others. This one is Hooked, #Hooked. I refuse to call it a hashtag. I know. No, I'm just kidding. #Hooked, Pitfalls of Media Technology, Social Networking. And then another one, 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You. A lot of really good research on some of the things that we've mentioned and talked about. So the approach that we have taken is to begin by thinking about what addiction is. We started in very first class by looking at a definition of addiction: compulsive, chronic, physiological or psychological need for a habit-forming substance, behavior, or having a harmful physical, psychological, or social effects, typically causing well-defined symptoms upon withdrawal or abstinence. So there are not just physical substances that are classified as addictions, but also behaviors. And within just the last probably 10 years, cell phone, social media addiction has been identified by the American Psychological Association as a legitimate form of addiction. A legitimate form of addiction. Compulsive, chronic, causing some physiological, meaning legit changes in your body. What they have seen is that the same kind of withdrawal symptoms that a heroin addict has are present in people who are addicted to their phones when they can't be on them or have them anymore. Sounds like I'm a crazy cave dweller up here, but there is so much research that has gone into this that it's actually pretty staggering. And so what we did from there is to think about addiction is a form of idolatry. Idolatry being defined as the worship of a physical object as a god, or having an immoderate attachment or devotion to an object. Worship is extravagant respect or admiration, devotion to an object of esteem. So, what we are trying to think about are the things that we can have in our lives that are behaviors, obsessions, addictions, is the same as being an idol in our lives. Something we can't live without. Something we pay an inordinate amount of attention to. Something that changes how we view and think about our relationships with others, changes how we prioritize things in our life. Essentially, they can become pocket idols. And so we kind of went from there to thinking about addiction as idolatry. So, from there I want us to reflect on a few of the passages that we have been looking at, taking a little bit more time with the passages in Corinthians. So if you have your Bibles handy, turn over to 1 Corinthians beginning in chapter 6. I think we're going to have a little bit less time this morning. We have a little bit longer service. We've got about probably 20. You said 11:48? Okay, so we got about 20 minutes or so here. So I'll have to go through these a little bit quickly. All right, so in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, the reason why I've used this, I mentioned this before, ultimately Paul is dealing with questions of sexual immorality within the church, but he is quoting things that he has heard the church is saying as arguments for why they should be able to engage in whatever kind of behavior they should engage in. That there's no specific laws against it. And so when he says, all things are lawful for me, sometimes your English translations will helpfully put quotes around those. Throughout this section, Paul very often seems to be quoting something that he has heard that the church is saying and making his own rebuttal. So you've said all things are lawful, but he says not all things are helpful. You have said all things are lawful for me. Paul's rebuttal to that is, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be enslaved by anything. By anything. So when we think about, our phones, as I have mentioned before, I don't really want to do much where I try to tell you that phones are great, because you already use them, so I don't need to convince you of that. There are good uses. I'm not saying you should throw them away. What I'm saying is, all too easily, something that is a good thing in your life that isn't inherently evil can, without careful attention from ourselves, become something that ensnares us, enslaves us, begins to have an inordinate amount of control over how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, what's most important to us. And that's the principle behind what he's saying. And that's why I think we can use that as a principle to think about how we think about maybe not only cell phones, but so many other things in our life. It's the just because I can, should I? And at what point does something cross the line from being a tool that helps me to stay connected or to use for this, that, or the other? At what point does that cross a line into becoming something that has ensnared me or enslaved me? Going over to chapter 10, another principle we've been trying to kind of work with, and I want to read a little bit more of this passage beginning in verse 1. Here Paul is speaking specifically about idolatry, the worship of something else, and defining it pretty broadly. So he says, I want you to know, starting in verse 1, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and they passed through the sea. All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food. They all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that flowed them from them, and the rock was Christ. Obviously, Paul is reading back into some of these stories present history, right? So he's reading back into these stories, the story of Jesus. But he's referring to a time in which Israel was all united, all on the same page in their devotion to God. However, he says, verse 5, with many of them, or most of them, God was not pleased, and they were overthrown in the wilderness, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. These things took place as examples for us, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. All right. So first, whenever we think about idolatry in the Bible, what are some of the images that initially come to your mind? What? Golden calf. Is that the first thing that came to most of your minds? Right? A man-made object that they held up as worship and gave credit for their well-being and for their life to this inanimate object. When we define idolatry narrowly, we can think, well, I don't have any golden calves sitting in my room or whatever. But what is the idea behind that? That I am worshiping something man-made rather than God. But Paul defines it even more broadly than that. Because look what he says, don't be idolaters as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. He's defining idolatry also as being behaviors or activities in life that have more value to you, that you spend more time doing than you value and spend time with God. That's a much broader category than what we normally think. We must not indulge, as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a day. We must not put Christ to the test, as some of them did and were destroyed by serpents, or grumble, as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer. There's a lot of things there. All the way from indulging in sexual immorality to just grumbling. Just grumbling. Now, these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for us. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you, but that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation provides a way of escape so that you can endure it. So, my beloved, flee from idolatry. So the 2 points I really want to bring out here is verse 12 and the end of verse 13. Let anyone who thinks that they stand take heed lest they fall. So just a caution to all of us here who may, in their minds, maybe not necessarily outwardly and on their face, but in their minds, scoff at the idea that something as simple as a phone could become an idol, could cause us to fall. There is a warning. Anything can become idolatrous in our lives if we let it, if we're not careful. That's the warning that he gives. Take heed, thinking, not me, no problem, I don't have an issue with that. Take heed, be aware, pay attention, lest you fall. But, he says, God will provide you a way to escape. So flee. That's kind of what we're talking about today. The take heed and flee, lest we fall. What do we need to do? In Matthew chapter 6, this is a well-known story in which Jesus is talking about serving two masters. And he says we cannot serve more than one master. There cannot be more than one thing that has the ultimate place of priority in my life. I have to choose what will take the top priority in my life. You can't think that I can have equal things in my life that are equally important and not think that I'm going to show one of them favoritism over the other. We cannot serve two masters. Jesus says you will hate one and love the other. You will despise one and not the other. Meaning, that if there is more in our lives that vies for the seat of our ultimate attention and worship, we will begin to resent the thing that prevents us from doing what we really want to do. Just let that sink in for a second. We will begin to resent anything that keeps us from doing what we really want to do. We can't serve more than one master. How do we think about who we serve and who our master is? Well, what we have said before is it's whatever I spend the most of my time engaged in or the most of my time doing. It's what I allow to prioritize myself in my life. Then I was super ugly to myself and to all of you by showing you this. I don't know if you remember this. If you don't, just let me remind you. This is a graph showing our time and what we devote to. The average American in like 5 years ago was spending at least 4 hours a day on their phones. You can keep track, most of them keep track for you. If you do the math, 4 hours a day equals 61 days of the year, 24-hour days, just on your phone, doing whatever it is you do on your phone, whether it's social media or anything else. 61 days. Let's say you're pretty good and you only spend 3 hours a day on your phone. That's 45 days, 45 24-hour periods of just being on your phone. Imagine you go 61 days, 45 days, and you never put your phone down, ever. 2 hours a day equals 30 days. The little blue one down here is how much time you spend if you go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. 6 24-hour days out of the year. This is assuming that's all you do. I'm hoping that you can look at this and go, I spend more time devoted to God, more time being a disciple of Christ than just the time I spend at church. More time working on my relationship with God. More time living my life in a worshipful, intentional manner of God. This is at least for me, it's a hard wake-up call of where is my time and attention truly going and what is it going to? If all I'm doing is the blue line, it's pretty definitive and distinct. All right, so what do we do? Hebrews challenges us to lay aside anything that prevents us from running with endurance, from following Jesus. To lay aside, to regain control over anything that is taking the seat of priority in our lives over God. Anything to lay it aside. If other things are your struggle, you're being called to lay those aside. The point is that each of us should be examining our own lives to decide what choices, what changes do I need to make? What things do I need to examine? What is God calling me to lay aside? There's a spiritual practice called detachment. And if you're interested in it, I can have copies for you or send it to you. But it's a very intentional way of walking through your life to ask, what do I need to legitimately let go of? There are things that you can't let go of that do require time and attention, your work, family, those sorts of things. But to truly, honestly ask yourself, what am I overly attached to? The idea behind this is, if you were to try to think about going on a fast from your phone or from social media, pay attention to how it makes you feel to determine whether or not it's clinging too closely. If the thought of putting your phone down and going on a phone fast, or even if you're going to have it, but you're not going to check your email, you're not going to check social media, you're not going to do anything, you're not even going to text. If you're going to talk to someone, you're going to call them and have a relationship with the actual human being. Check in. How does it make you feel? You're not going to have it to be on YouTube at any moment when you're uncomfortable or awkward. You're not going to have it to just breeze the news whenever you're standing in the line at a grocery store or waiting on your next class to start. How does it make you feel? If you start feeling like nervous and sweaty and panicky and like, what am I going to miss? Who am I going to miss? Life is going to go on without me. Maybe it is something that is clinging too closely to you, defining your life. The point is to allow our life in Christ to define everything we do, not the other way around. And so much of the time in so many other areas besides this in life, I see us allowing our involvement in the world to define my faith, rather than my faith to define my involvement in the world. And that applies in so many ways, in so many other areas of life. So many of you who have ever been in a relationship before with someone, you know there comes a moment when you're casually dating and they say, all right, we have to have the DTR. Does anybody know that? That was a big thing when I was in college, the DTR, define the relationship talk. We were like, where are we? How are we doing? Where are we going to go? Where do we see this going? I mentioned this last week when I talked about dating a girl who, after a first date, was like, I think we should probably get married. I was like, I think you're probably wrong. So let's time to define the relationship. Time to define the relationship you have with your phone. The thing is, I can talk and I can, present all this till I'm blue in the face, but ultimately it's going to have to be you becoming convicted of this yourself in your own life. All I can do is maybe offer some advice and some help. So, redefining the relationship with your phone. These are just going to be some of my suggestions, and I would love to hear other people who may have been on a journey, what your story is like, what things you have found helpful to you. When I was doing campus ministry, I did this with my college students, and I had one student who had made a decision a year before to give up her phone and just go to a flip phone. So that if I claim that my phone is just a tool to stay connected to people, why do I need anything more than the ability to call another person or for them to call me? And what was incredible was some of the things that she found. She was like, I've noticed so much more how little people actually talk to each other in person. It's like we're going to be in a room together or at a table together, just being on our phones, not actually engaging as a human. She said the number of times pouring my heart out to someone and they get a text or a beep or a buzz, and then it's like I don't exist anymore. So her journey was really, really interesting and pretty severe. When I think about going just to a flip phone, like I start getting hives. And I tell myself, well, I couldn't do without my maps. Couldn't do without my maps, right? There's always a thing. There's always a thing. All right, so what do we do? Number one, I'll call this dumb down your phone. All right, so some of the suggestions I'm going to make probably will make you really uncomfortable when it comes to dumbing down your phone. Number one, take email off your phone. Take email off your phone. Only use these things that are called personal computers or laptops to check your email. Because oftentimes email is a way, especially for our adults, I know this is not hitting our teenagers too much, a way for work to communicate with us and get a hold of us. If you have it on your phone, guess how much work can always get a hold of you and demand your time and attention away from your family and whoever else? All the time. All the time. Number two, this is where everybody else is going to get mad at me. Take all social media apps off your phone. Take all social media apps off your phone. Limit yourself to checking social media when you go to a browser. So I stopped, I got off all social media, Instagram, all of it. I got rid of all of it. I keep my Facebook account active. When we moved here, I had it, and I checked it because I knew people would reach out to me on there to say hi or whatever. But I don't have the app anywhere. I have to go to an actual browser to log in. And it's not a fun experience. It's way harder to do that. And so I find more and more, I just care less and less. If I want to know how someone's doing, I go ask them. I go talk to them. I have a conversation with people. And let me tell you one thing. I have never been happier than to be off of it. Anytime an election cycle comes along, I am glad I'm off of it. I'm happy not to be a part of just all the craziness. Disable your web browser on your phone, or at least make it hard to access. You know, it's funny when you're having a conversation with someone and someone says something and you're like, well, I don't know, is it that way? And you're like, well, let's ask the all-knowing Google. Do you really need to? How about just argue a little longer? You know, like just talk a little bit more. We have a constant way of taking our attention away from whatever it is we're doing, being present in the moment, and escaping or disappearing somewhere else. I would add, along with the social media and the web browser, YouTube. If you're like me and you've got the internet or YouTube and you don't do anything else, it's like I can go on the internet to Google something or YouTube to look something up, and just 2 hours will just drain away from my life. And I go, what was I even doing to begin with? What did I even come here for? They are just meant to take our time and attention. Here's another one that will give a lot of you hives, and I realize that some of you need this for work, but let me tell you, doing this next one, like it changed my life and how much more work I get done, how much more focused I am when I'm with people, how much less anxiety I have in general, is I have disabled all notifications. I don't get notified about anything. If I want to know if I've got an email, I got to go check it. If I want to know if someone's texted me, and I apologize for many of you who text me and I don't get back to you for like a day, I don't get notified when someone texts me. I have to be intentional about looking to see if someone has tried to reach out to me. And when I'm sitting, studying, or in a conversation with someone, I never have to be worried about my attention or my focus being pulled away from the present moment to someone else. Now, it's not that I never look at it or ignore it, because obviously there are times when people need to get in touch with you. But if it is a problem for you, because I've seen some people's phones and you look at their notifications, and it is a nightmare. Because everything under the sun is notifying them. Hey, you got to feed your dog on this crazy app. Hey, Tetris is waiting on you. Hey, so-and-so liked your whatever, right? There are every single thing you download has a notification to say, don't do whatever it is you're doing. Don't pay attention to whoever it is you're paying attention to. Pay attention instead to this little thing right here. Notifications are a silent killer. I love having mine off of mine. Here's another one that's going to hit mostly probably adults. Ditch the news apps. What good is it to worry and fill yourself with anxiety all day about all the things that come out on the news all the time? Like, go turn on the TV at channel 6, right? At 6 o'clock, well, at 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. 6. Does anybody notice that the news is on every 30 minutes and it's always the same thing?
Are you including weather in that? Because I feel like that's pertinent.
Yeah.
It's a matter of life and death.
So, yeah. It's all to your own discretion. I'm telling you what I have done. I'm telling you what I've done and how much better and more peaceful my life is as a result of it. All right. Here's a few other suggestions. Delete every app that you don't need or doesn't make life easier. I forgot to bring this book. John Comer wrote a book called The Elimination of Hurry. The Elimination of Hurry. And it was hugely helpful to me and just sort of getting rid of crazy busyness and distractions. And one of the things he talks about is keeping apps that are wonder apps. Apps that are like, this really helps make life easier. Maps, for instance, is a good one. Don't get rid of Maps because it can actually help your life become easier. Apps that help you keep track of your finances, things like that. It's the infinite scroll kind of apps. It's the apps that are nothing more than a way to get you clicking on it and moving around. I remember in the middle of doing this series, the very first time I ever talked about this, I had a game on my phone, and I started thinking about the game really didn't do anything. But it constantly had these little red dots to notify you something was new or some new thing you could open. And I remembered, I thought one day, I kind of paid attention. I was like, I'd spent 30 minutes just constantly tapping all around my phone, just opening up all the little notifications that I got a prize or whatever. 30 minutes of not actually even playing the game. but just clicking on all these little things. I was like, what am I doing? This is literally crazy. It's literally crazy. All right, so delete the apps that you don't need or make life easier. This is a quote that I really liked. I don't remember who said this. When we invest our time and energy in technology as creators or consumers, we should invest in products that belong in the future. Oh, this is John Comer. And not in those that make our lives disappear faster than they already do. So in other words, when we are investing in it in some way, do so in a way that is helping you, not taking time away from you. Do it in a way that helps you make your life more efficient. And remove the infinity apps, the apps that just are designed to keep you addicted. Maybe this time I'll get something good. Maybe this time I'll see a like. Maybe this time I'll see. Has anybody ever noticed on those infinite scroll, like you could scroll for 5 minutes seeing nothing interesting to you except an ad for something you mentioned to a friend 2 days ago that you thought you might like? And then it's like every now and then you'll hit some, oh, I actually wanted to see that, or it's a friend. That's hooking you into just keeping going. I think you call it doom scroll. Is that the right phrase? All right, few others. Consolidate into a few boxes to declutter. And here's a big one. I don't have my phone on me. I left it in my office. Matt texted me in service one day, and I didn't get it until way later. I told him, I was like, you're trying to get me in trouble, but I'll leave my phone in the office just for that. But if I had it to show you, in accessibility and display, you can set your phone to grayscale, black and white. You can turn the color off. You know, they track not only your screen time, but how many times you just pick it up to look at it. They say the average person picks their phone up just to look at it, roughly 150 to 200 times a day. Just to, no reason, just, I'm going to look at it, and then what I want to do, I'm going to put it down. I was close to that, 150 or so. When I set it to grayscale, it went to like 20. Because it's not attractive to look at. It has truly become more of just a tool rather than a device to like stimulate the dopamine in my brain. Because I'm not looking at it because it's pretty and it's attractive and I want to get into all the things. I just go to it when I need information, when I need to do something, when I need to call somebody. It's amazing. Try it. Try it for a day and see how it changes. How much you actually want to grab your phone and look at it when it's in grayscale. And it's not like a pretty black and white. It's like a weirdly ugly grayscale, where sometimes it's even hard to see what your apps are. It's the best. I know, but a lot of you are looking at me like, this is the craziest person I've ever seen. Okay, next, put it to bed. Make it sleep in. How many of you sleep with your phone right next to your bed? And the first thing you do in the morning is grab it and look at it, and the last thing you do at night is have it in your hand and look at it. Not many of you are raising your hand, but I almost imagine every single person in here does that. And I know what you're going to say. Will I use it for my alarm clock? Hey, you know what they sell at Walmart? Alarm clocks. Alarm clocks. So, set a time when you're going to put it away. Some of you have probably heard this, but where is it? Oh, I didn't put it on here. Some of you have probably heard this, but they say that the blue light on your phones, it stimulates your brain. So if you're looking at it and then you try to go to sleep immediately, it takes way longer for you to actually shut off your mind and fall asleep and get restful sleep because your brain has been stimulated to be turned on. So if you try to put your phone away at a certain time at night, you will actually sleep better. You will have a more restful night's sleep if you try to put it away, disengage from it. Okay, couple other things. I know we're almost out of time. Phubbing is a term that was used to describe when you phone snub a person. So one of the things you can decide to do is I'm not going to phone snub a person. What that means is like we've said, if I am talking to someone and I get a ding or response on my phone, and my kids get on to me a lot about this, I'll just stop whatever I'm doing, stop in my tracks to answer the text or do whatever. And I think that I can multitask. I think that I can continue carrying on a conversation with the person while I'm doing this. It's scientifically proven impossible to do that. You cannot do it. So, don't phone snub another human being. When you're having a conversation and your phone goes off and you go to it, you're saying, whoever is not with me is more important than whatever it is I'm doing right now. And it says to the other person, I care more about literally anybody else than I care about you in this moment. Multitasking, Walter Brueggemann says, is the drive to be more than we are, control more than we do, extend our power and our effectiveness. These reveal or yield a divided self where we give our full attention to nothing. All right, just some other suggestions here for email, for social media. Set times where you're going to check it. Don't glance and check it every spare moment you have. Set a goal for yourself of how you want to stick to it. Set time limits. I had a friend of mine who went on this journey. He uses social media like really heavily, and he uses it for ministry, and he decided he was going to do this and try to set time limits. And he would say, I would start by saying, I'm only going to give myself 30 minutes. And he said, I realized it was a problem when I could never do that. Like it would be 2 hours. And my alarm would go off and be like, you know, like when you sleep in the morning, 9 more minutes, 9 more minutes, 9 more minutes, just a little longer, just a little longer. So set time limits and stick to it. As a tool, it's fine, but recognize legitimately that it rarely is a tool. I mean, I think we could probably agree. Recognize that our phones are tools that are useful to us. Even social media can be useful to us, but we have to recognize that it is so rarely functioning in that way. As I mentioned before, one of my favorite quotes of that same friend, he said, I was a believer in social media, but I started to come to realize that the benefits are not outweighing the negatives and what it's doing to me, what it's doing to my family. All right, so you can kind of take a look at that. If you decide that this is a journey you want to go on, that you want to try to do a tech detox, I would offer these as some suggestions. Going cold turkey will be hard, so plan your progress, be intentional, start small. The big one, this third one, if you just reduce or remove your use, you will fill it with something else. So be intentional with what you choose you're going to fill it with. So anytime there's a vacuum, something wants to rush in to fill it. If I spend so much time on my phone and I decide that I'm going to get rid of that, I'm going to free my mind up for other things. Be careful, in particular, what you decide to replace your usage with. Just make that suggestion. All right, so what are some things, if anyone's ever kind of gone on this journey on your own, what are some things that have helped you? Or maybe you're all like, never have, and don't know if I ever will. But has anybody ever tried to do something different, and how's it worked? Or has it?
Say deleting apps is probably most helpful.
Yeah. You've done that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What change or difference did you see?
More intentional time spent focusing on certain things.
Yeah.
Eventually, you know, the draw to go back to the app, it's kind of hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Yeah. All right, that's our final bell. So next week, parents, we're going to stay in here. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about your responsibility, not only for yourself, but for your kids, navigating the digital world. So hopefully you'll stick around for that. Thank you, guys. Nice.